What's going on, Vapor fans? Today we're going to be talking about the Sdna 200 device by SMY. Okay, so before we begin, full disclosure, full transparency on this one. Okay, what do I have to say about these little guys? I worked on them. Okay, so therefore this video is not a review. I will tell you the story. I will walk you through it. I'll tell you everything that you need to know about these things, but I can't say that this is a review because I personally worked on this item, okay? Not only did I work on this item, both me and Daniel, DJ LSB, worked on this item. So, let me give you a little backstory. Why did we do this? Why did we agree to go ahead and help out a company and stuff? Well, it's really to set the bar, to set precedents, to do something different, you know? Because there's so much of the Me Too game going on, right? And what are we talking about? We're talking about, like, every single time a certain company comes out with something innovative, comes out with something different, then there's the Me Too thing. And it started a long time ago, all the way back from where there was like IGOWs into a Nimbus, into a Patriot RDA, and it was just like, you know, Me Too, right? When it moved on to when the K-Fun was released, after the K-Fun, there were so many other things like the Root Scar, the Russian, the Rocket, I don't know, all different things that was like just very similar to it. There was so many different kinds of versions and so many different clone versions as well. So one thing is for sure, right, is that like the moment you step up your game or something like that, then if anybody else wants to do the Me Too thing, they got to step up their game as well. And that's exactly what the whole point of this is. What is the biggest gripe at the moment with like the DNA 200s, all right? I will tell you this. Other than the Vapor Shark, okay, but the Vapor Shark, what the Vapor Shark has is that it has proper factory calibration. Meaning, what happens is that like when Evolve went ahead and developed this chip so that like different kind of manufacturers could go ahead and slap it in different kinds of boxes that they made, right? You could match it up with, you know, any size battery, any kind of casing that you want, etc., etc., etc. So, but they left it blank. And it's up to a lot of these companies to go ahead and tweak it properly. What is the problem with these companies? You guessed it. Many of these companies are not even vapors, right? Of course, that does kind of put a dent on situations. That does kind of put a frown on things. However, it's what we have in the industry right now, and they're the ones making this stuff and making it cheap and making it affordable for people. So we need to also bring in people to help them do it right. So both Daniel and I actually volunteered to go ahead and do this and help them out. Now, why is it not a better company? Why is it not like some kick-ass somebody who's doing very well right now? Say like Sigeli, say like a Pioneer for You or something like that. Because it's very simple. Companies that are doing very well will not listen to you. Innikid's doing very well, Kangaroo's doing well, Aspire is doing very well. They will not listen to you. They don't have to listen to you because anything they go ahead and put out right now is going to sell no matter what. So they could just go ahead and do their own thing. But when a company is a little bit more in jeopardy, let's go behind the scenes real quick, you know, go back in history real quick about the SMY, okay? Now, SMY, you know, ever since the God mod, after that, it was just like garbage after garbage, right? The 30 was no good, the 90 was no good, and then finally, this one was done decent. It was decent, and the packaging was upgraded. But then, after this, they did the 170, and the 170 was like, what the hell? The full assembly even like fell apart. And SMY's name is just, you know, up and down, but mostly down. So where does that put them now? It puts them in a position where they need to listen, and finally hit a home run. Okay. Granted, in this capitalist market that like you could go ahead and swing many times and miss, and all you need to do is hit once and it will make up for all those misses, right? And that's the way things kind of are. But you can only miss so many times in a row where you're like, okay, we absolutely need a hit now. And this one is going to be a hit, and let me explain why. So earlier I talked about like proper calibration of things, right? So what happens is that many of you guys who are early adopters of the DNA 200s out there will know this. You could go ahead and purchase a device from China that they slap together or whatever, and right away you're only getting like 500 milliamp hours out of it. Why? Because it's default settings. It's not set properly. Okay, so whether you have a 1300 mAh battery inside, a 1500 mAh battery inside, 1800 mAh, whatever it is, right? You need to go ahead and calibrate for that properly. Okay. Now, on top of this, you also have to calibrate for your thermal casing. You also have to calibrate for the internal resistance of the entire mod with its battery. Why do you need to do this? Because if you don't do this, then it won't read your atomizer properly. Now, if it reads the atomizer properly, then as it gets hotter, as you increase heat, as you use the mod, as it goes up, the graduation of things, right, will also be calibrated properly. If you're off by like, a point, like something ohms or whatever, then the calibration would be off as well. And the graduation as we go up would also be off. Follow me so far? Okay, so on top of this, right, other than the Vapor Shark, which has that part set up properly, right, you also need to set up certain profiles of usage. And what I'm talking about is the different kinds of temperature control items, right? So the most common ones out there at the moment is, between the nickel and the titanium, and then, so using some of the stainless stuff, whereas it's 304 or 316. And what Daniel and I went ahead and did is pre-program these things for exactly that. So not only is this thing incredibly accurate, as we go up and then we apply more power to it and stuff. If you check out Daniel's review on it, you'll see that like the blue bar and the green bar is just head to head constantly, right? This is because things are calibrated properly. It's tuned well because it's tuned by him. What I personally did was I upgraded a lot of the hardware on this thing. So what I'm going to show you right now was the original Sdna 200 that had this setup over here, and then this is the new one, okay, which is just round and smooth. Okay, what's the problem? The problem is that the ring on this thing was not what you think. Okay, the first ones that originally came out was made in chrome-plated brass. Okay, and what's going to happen? A couple of my other reviewer friends, shout out to Daryl from Quest for Vape, he noticed that like when he uses this thing in temperature control, right, and say whatever your wattage setting is going to be, and then you set it at, say, I don't know, 120 watts or something like that, because you enjoyed the ramp up time of 120 watts, and now you're vaping in temperature control. So it'll go up, it'll come down, and then it'll be a smooth hit, right? But what happens with the chrome plated brass is that like that thing is not good enough to hold the signal of temperature control. So what would happen is that like as you're taking a hit, it'll kick back into wattage, and now you suddenly just vape that 120 watts, and it'll just take your head off, right? Very uncomfortable. Very we have to fix that. So opening this thing up, a lot of the soldering job inside, hot mess. Okay, heated mess. Okay, you might say, what is a heated mess? Well, a heated mess is when there is a mess and heat is applied to it, leaving it even worse than it was before. So a lot of things in here needed change. Okay, other than to scrape off all this chrome-plated brass and switch it back to stainless, right? Things have to be grounded properly. Things have to be spring-loaded properly, okay? Many times China likes to, do like this different kind of spring-loaded pin where it's not really a spring load inside, but rather than kind of like a bouncy rubber gasket, right? So that like, when you go ahead and then you tap it with your with a pen or a screwdriver or something like that, it does give the impression of being spring-loaded, but it's not real spring-loaded, as opposed to like, the high quality things that we use, like the Fat Daddies or the Veritubes or something like that. So if you have experience with that, definitely go ahead and take a pen, stab, get used to that feeling before you go ahead and purchase other new devices that, tries to mimic that with some other way. The problem is that only actual spring-loaded stuff is going to be able to last and withstand certain amounts of heat, while the bouncy stuff or whatever, you build your atomizer a little bit too high, you crank this thing up or all the way, whatever, it's going to lose its bounce over in the future. So we went ahead and corrected many of those things inside. The button rattle, although still there, the button rattle is significantly reduced than what it originally was. Okay, finishes on this device. You probably have seen other videos and whatnot saying that like the original one felt a little bit more like a chalkboard. The new one, however, it has a nice, very nice satin finish on it. And as far as the other colors is concerned, I have them over here, which is also in white and also in red. So I'm going to show you guys that real quick, and I'll bring it over to the camera. And I'm going to go ahead and try to, like, you know, edge it a little bit over here so that you could actually see that there is a gloss finish on these things. So for the white one and the red one, if you hold it in your hand, it feels like a piano. You know what I mean? It has a nice glossy piano finish to it. So yeah, guys, absolutely, that's why we decided to step in and help out, because there's a huge complaint about these things, okay, which is the whole E-scribe process and stuff. Sure, E-scribe, it's there, it's great, you could tweak your own thing, you could do whatever you want with it, but what about for all the other folks who want a DNA 200 but doesn't want to mess with all that stuff? They just wanted to work and do a lot of things that they want to do right out of the box and not have to worry so much about E-scribe, especially since at the moment of this date, okay, please always check the date before you comment on. All right, there is no E-scribe support for Mac computers. So there's a lot of people out there who have nothing but a Mac, and that's going to kind of sort of leave them out in the cold. So if we go ahead and then do this, where number one, the box is properly calibrated and it's going to come with you know, proper power profiles for TCR settings and stuff like that, then a person could potentially just buy this thing, take it out from the box, and he's just good to go. You know, you don't really have to worry about anything other than, like, you know, if you ever wanted to go back and set up E-scribe just because you wanted to change the splash screen from saying SMY to, you know, hello Fred, or you know, whatever your name is, or something like that. I feel as if by doing so, back to what I said about the whole Me Too thing, then other companies will follow suit, and this will set precedents for making vape world better. You know what I mean? The whole intention of this thing is to make a better tomorrow. All right, so let's go ahead and dive down and take a close look at this thing, and then we'll talk more about it. Okay, so with me in front of me over here, right, the right one, right, was the older version. Okay, and if you go ahead and then you purchase this one, this is the older version. I recommend that you return it immediately, right? This one is the newer version. Now, what I was told by SMY is that these have all been recalled. Okay, so be very careful of your local vendor if they still have some old stock because they didn't follow up with a recall or something like that. But this is the new one, and it should be completely smooth, all right? So yeah, now it has a nice satin finish to it, and it feels lovely. All right, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to turn this little guy on, right, and then let's hold down the buttons over here so that we're locked in place, and then from here you can either double tap down, double tap up, double tap down, or tap up and down, you know, whichever one. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and sorry, double tap, and now we're in the power mode over here, and then from the power mode we go into nickel TC, titanium TC, 304, 316. These are things that are pre-programmed in here for you, so that once you have that, then you could come back, you know, unlock your unlock your fire button, put your atomizer on, and party on. So yeah, what do you need to know about this thing? This thing, all right, for what it is at the moment, okay, the smallest form factor for the largest battery. Okay, this thing is smaller than the E-cig VT200, but it's rocking a 1500 milliamp hour battery inside. Okay, now the original advertisement of this thing said 1600. Okay, why did they say 1600? So because when they ran the E-scribe software, okay, they got, you know, just a little bit over 1600 watt hours that went by, and they thought it was the same thing. Actually, it's not the same thing. Right, there is a formula involved to convert watt hours in order over to milliamp hours. So the actual battery size of this thing is 1500 milliamp hours inside, and it works lovely. Right. So far I've been using this one and having no problems with it whatsoever. I love the other colors as well. And, you know, finally, calibration and done properly so that right out of the box, anybody can use it. Let's get into a little bit of final thoughts on this, okay? I know I said that this is not a review because I personally worked on this thing, so of course I'm going to say lovely things about it, right? I understand the whole track record of SMY. I totally concur as well. You have seen me do videos in the past where I directly took a SMY mod and threw it into the trash, so, you know, I'm with you, you know? But as I said before and I explained earlier, right? You can't talk to a company that's doing well. You know, they think they're doing all the right things. Whatever the features that they put in, whether it's missing a balancing board or, you know, it's actually using a lower graded Yeehy chip with just like a whatever, algorithm for a TC configuration on it, and then they just, you know, wrap it up and sell it as is. Or, you know, when the IPv4 originally came out, right, and the plug for it wasn't even for recharging. It was at best just for updating, and that's it. And you still had to take the batteries out and rotate them in order to charge them because it didn't have a balanced charging board inside. Things like that. Sell it anyways. They sell well anyways, and they make money on it anyways. It wasn't a swing and a miss, you know? So stuff like that will just keep coming and keep spewing out. This is at least a step in the right direction, okay? So for what it's worth right now, for the cost of everything right now, this little guy, what I've seen is that the E-cig VT200 goes for $160, and you get something slightly bigger, slightly more ergonomical, but slightly bigger, and you get 1,300 mAh, while this one is 1,500 mAh, slightly smaller and cheaper by $10. This one currently on the market goes for $150. So would I pick this one over the E-cig one? Yeah, hell yeah. And plus, having this tuned by my friend Daniel from DJLSB, it's accurate. We know it's accurate. The charts prove that it is accurate. So definitely, if you guys are in the market for a DNA 200, this is probably one that you should look into. That's it for my thoughts on this Sdna 200. And as we always say here on PV8, do your homework and vape clever. Take care, my friends.